Welcome back to Questing Beast, I'm Ben. Today we're taking a look at Pirateborg, or rather, the new Pirateborg materials that have just been released. We'll be looking at the starter set box, as well as the Down Among the Dead expansion. Now, the publisher was nice enough to send me 2 review copies of all of this material, so I'll be giving away one of these sets to one lucky subscriber to the Questing Beast newsletter. If you haven't already subscribed to the newsletter, head down to the link in the description below to check that out. Not only will it put you in the running for all of my RPG giveaways, you'll also get a roundup of all of the coolest stuff happening in the RPG space that you may have missed every month. All right, so what is Pirateborg? Well, Pirateborg is a piratical version of the Mork system, which has turned out to be very popular. There's lots of different versions of this core system that you see all over the place in the RPG world right now. I did a preview of the original book back when it was kickstarting, I believe, some time ago, but this is the starter set that really launches you out on a new campaign and gets new players and new GMs up to speed really quickly. Once you feel pretty comfortable with the core system, you may want to add on Down Among the Dead to get some extra subsystems, some new adventures, and a whole bunch of extra add-ons like new classes to spice up your game and give yourself a little bit more variety. On the back of the book here, it says it contains the adventures Lost to the Locker, An Escape from Purgatory, Venom in the Veins, A Sneak Dungeon Crawl, and Into the Maelstrom, A Maritime Vampire Hunt. And all of these are for the worst pirate RPG ever made, but of course, we will be the judge of that. Let's take a look at this new GM screen first of all. It's a 5-part GM screen, and it has all the different names for NPCs so you can generate those really quickly. It has all the rules for weapons and items. It has the basic rules of the game, abilities and tests, how to do combat and so forth, and just other useful tables, including some summaries of naval combat. And of course, there's a nice big image on the other side of it for your players to look at to get them in the mood for playing Pirateborg. What do we get inside the boxed set? Well, there is a set of custom dice from a D2, which is a coin, all the way up to a D20. These are very nice. They're very hefty, and they have nice big numbers on them. It feels very piratey and very easy to read. There's a whole bunch of cards in here that goes through a lot of the different types of enemies and NPCs and ships that you might find in the game with stats and information on the other side. This is really useful for just showing your players when they run into a new type of creature so they can immediately see what it is that they're dealing with. There's a couple of little expo markers in here, which are important for the character sheets, which we'll look at in a second. There is an adventure, Trapped in the Tropics. This is the ideal adventure to start out a campaign. It kind of introduces you to all of the main systems and the types of adventures that you're going to have step by step as you go through it. And I did actually play in this adventure, at least the first part of it, when I was at GameholeCon. There's a player's guidebook, which is a summary of the core rules of the game. It's basically information from the main Morkborg book, which is this one right here, but it doesn't have a lot of the extra information. It's just the most important stuff that you need to know. This is pretty useful, so if you, as the game master, are running out of this book, you can have the players pass around this one. There's a set of character sheets in here, but these are glossy character sheets that you can use this expo marker to write on, which is really useful. It reminds me a little bit of Mothership's character sheets in that it walks you step by step with what you need to do, so you don't even have to refer to this guidebook. On the back of them, there's information for all the different classes, so this is pretty much all you need to make characters. Now, if you want fancier character sheets, there's a whole pad of them right here, but probably for your starting game, you're going to want to use these ones. Now, the rest of the contents of the box is mostly battle mats, which is really awesome. All of the major locations that you're going to have encounters in that core adventure have battle mats that go along with it. So you don't have to print any out. It's all just here ready to go. They're all double-sided. There's all the different locations, including ship maps. So if you have a ship like that, then you can see exactly where everything is on the ship. You can move your characters around on this grid. And there's also a side view so you can see how it's laid out vertically, which is really cool. The back of this one has a huge map of the local town and the nearby islands that you're going to be exploring. It's just great. There's tons of handouts. It makes the game very visual. There's a sea map so you can just have sea battles. A big map of the entire Dark Caribbean, which is the setting for this role-playing game. And there's even in-world artifacts. These maps are going to be handing out to your players, which they can discover in the game world. And it recommends that you tear up the edges of it. You can even tear it in half. You can add coffee stains to it and really make it feel like something that would be in a piratey world. And finally, there are some cardboard punch-outs here for the different kinds of ships and all the different characters if you don't have miniatures that you can use. This system here is used for tracking the number of watches that have gone by during a day. And I love how every surface of this thing is used. Inside the cover, there's more summary information there, and there's some at the bottom of this one as well. All right, next let's take a look through all of the rules and adventures that we find in these products. But first, a quick shout out to today's sponsor. This video is sponsored by Mythic Roll and their gorgeous 3D printable dice towers, which are available right now on Kickstarter. After a successful crowdfunder 4 years ago, Mythic Roll is back with all new designs that will take your gaming table to the next level. They feature beautiful sculpting with a high level of detail and are fully support-free for easy FDM printing. They've been optimized for both single color and multicolor printing and have a wide variety of themes and styles to pick from, like this dragon wrapped around a castle or a haunted lighthouse. Don't miss out on the early bird pricing. Go back to the project right now using the link in the description below. All right, let's take a look through the player's guidebook for people who aren't super familiar with the Mork Borg or the Pirateborg system. All right, basically there are 5 abilities here: strength, agility, presence, toughness, and spirit, and they will have modifiers from -3 through +3. You'll be rolling a d20, adding your modifier, and trying to hit a difficulty rating between 6 and 18. 12 is going to be normal. Now, this is the kind of game that's very focused on player rolls. So when a monster attacks you, you don't roll to see how well the monster does. Instead, you just roll to see how well you defend. Defense uses agility, ranged uses presence, and melee attacks are going to use strength. So how does armor work? With armor, you're going to be rolling a die to see how much damage you subtract from damage that you receive. So if you have tier 2 armor, you'll roll a d4 and subtract that from damage that you take. This armor system is actually one of the issues that I have with the Mork Borg system in general. So for example, when a monster is attacking you, first you're going to roll to see if it hits you. Then if it does, you'll roll to see how much damage you do. And then thirdly, you'll roll to see how much damage is reduced by your armor. That's 3 rolls for every attack. And in my mind, that's just too much. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but it just adds another level of things that you have to do for every round of combat. Now, to Pirateborg's credit, in that new book, Down Among the Dead with the expansion material, it does have some rules for smoothing out combat and making it a little bit faster. But by default, it's just a little too slow for me. If you drop down to exactly 0 hit points, there is some sort of effect that you can roll on here, like maybe you have a brain injury, or you roll to see if part of your body goes missing, like you lose an eye. If your hit points go negative, then you are dead. Now, as far as gaining experience goes, this is completely controlled by the Game Master. You basically level up or gain experience when they say that you do. But one of the interesting things about it is that all of your stats can change. If your stats are fairly high, then they might actually get a little bit lower, and very low stats are likely to improve. So over the course of a campaign, your stats are going to slowly shift up and down a little bit, moving a little bit towards the positive side over time. You also get more hit points, and you can gain a class feature, because there's a number of different class features for all of our standard classes. You could be a brute, or a rapscallion, a buccaneer, a swashbuckler, a zealot, which is like a cleric. You might be a sorcerer, a haunted soul, or a tall tale. When I actually played this game, I was a tall tale. I was an aquatic mutant. My character's name was Gasping Greg, and I made him this pale, slimy fish man character. But Pirateborg can get fairly silly. Like you might be a sentient animal, like a foul, where you gain the ability of 1 random relic and 1 random ritual, but you're also a chicken. When you're killed, the ghosts of 100 chickens swarm your assailant, ripping their spiritual soul from their flesh. So kind of like in The Curse of Monkey Island, you are El Pollo Diablo, the demon chicken. Or maybe you're just a crocodile. No special abilities, you're just a crocodile. I appreciate how this game does not take being a pirate very seriously. It's not very grimdark, it's not overly serious, it's a silly game about pirates and about fighting skeletons and getting treasure and stuff like that. One other issue with the Mork Borg system, though, that I did want to bring up is that you see this in a bunch of the characters' abilities. When you get some sort of advantage, like maybe you're getting an advantage in combat, you're better at sword fighting or something like that, rather than saying that you get a +2 to your attack rolls, it'll say that you have a -2 to your DR, which is the number that you're trying to hit. I find this very awkward and kind of confusing, that a lot of the advantages you get are expressed as subtractions from the target number. So when you're playing the game and trying to figure out what you need to roll, well, I have to roll this, and then I have to add this from my ability, and then I have to subtract this thing from the target number, but I don't know what the target number is, so I'll just tell the Game Master to remember to subtract that from the target number, when really this could be expressed just as a +2 to your d20 roll. I don't know why so many Mork Borg systems express things that way, but I do find it just odd and kind of irritating. There is a meta currency you start out with called the Devil's Luck. You start out with just 1 or 2 points typically, and they can do things like deal max damage with 1 attack, or lower damage dealt to you, or neutralize a crit or a fumble. There's a bunch of different options. And I like all of these tables at the back that give you lots of different options for your background or weird physical flaws and quirks that you have, idiosyncrasies, unfortunate incidents and conditions. Oh, and here's a really interesting thing about the format of this book. The numbers up here are not sequential. Sometimes it'll skip numbers as you're going through it. And that's because these numbers on these pages match up with the page numbers in the core book. I think that's really clever. So if a player is looking at a page like this and says, what's going on with the Codex tablet on page 63, the Game Master can go to page 63 in the core book and find the exact same information. There's also sea shanties that you can sing. And if your whole crew sings them, then you gain certain kinds of bonuses if they happen to know that sea shanty. Of course, if I was playing this game, I would demand that they actually sing that sea shanty in real life. And this being a pirate game, there is an entire system for naval combat done on a hex grid, though I have not had a chance to actually test this out yet. Next, let's take a look at Trapped in the Tropics, a Pirateborg adventure. This is the one found in the starter box set. One thing that's going to come up a lot in this adventure is ash, which is the powdered remains of undead creatures, which if inhaled can cause some pretty crazy experiences. Like maybe when the ash first takes effect, you're overcome by colorful euphoria, your soul a kaleidoscope. Then you attend a melancholy mermaid ballet. You thought you had grown gills, but now you realize that this ash might be bunk. As with the previous book, and as is often common in Mork books, there's a lot of very colorful, creative use of layout, but it's very easy to read and very well structured, which I really appreciate. There's other Mork books where it's just stuff is all over the page and it's hard to figure out what's going on. Although there are some cases where there's a dark green text used against a black background, which is actually very difficult to read. I appreciate how the adventure starts out by telling you the tone, style, and inspiration, so you immediately know the kind of adventure this is. Inspirations are things like The Princess Bride, or Muppet Treasure Island and Hook. A little bit of the Warhammer universe, perhaps. Some historical influences like Master and Commander. That's a really great movie. And one of my favorite video games of all time, the Monkey Island series. The basic structure of this adventure is that you and your crewmates have been hired by this conquistador and this nun who are looking for something called the Tongue of Thoth, although they might not tell you that initially. This is a powerful magical artifact which will lead to some very disastrous consequences by the end of the adventure. At least, it probably will. The author, Luke, is definitely not afraid to give you modern references in order to get you in the right headspace really quickly. So, for example, when describing Mother Iris, what is her manner? Stern, refined, and all-knowing, cruel. She's a Bene Gesserit from Dune, right? Not literally, but if you've seen Dune, you know the kind of person that she's supposed to be. If she obtains the tongue, she's evil Galadriel from The Lord of the Rings. She can handle it. Or Irina Spelko from Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull, if she can't handle it. That's really great. If you've seen those movies, you know those characters, you know how to play this person. The game starts out in the middle of an action. You've been dropped off on this island. Your ship has sailed away and has betrayed you. You're being chased by a bunch of English soldiers, as well as a bunch of zombies. I find this is usually the best way to start any adventure. Just throw them right into the action to keep the energy high. In the game that I was in, our game master, Tyler, was really good at creating a lot of cinematic action by even using cinematography, describing where the cameras were, describing like title credits slamming into the screen and things like that. It's definitely supposed to be an action-packed adventure, not something that's very slow and procedural. After that first encounter, you're going to want to explore this island. You're trying to find a missing boat. That's the first step in a series of clues towards getting the Tongue of Thoth. The book does emphasize that this is an open, structured adventure, so players can go in any direction and try whatever they want, and you're just going to have to go along with it. Eventually, you find that missing boat, and it's being hung upside down and tangled in a bunch of vines from the forest canopy. This is a lot of fun because there's a lot of held kinetic tension right here, because the ship is always creaking and it's about to fall down. There's all these traps inside it that have been set by someone. So as you explore, things get more and more dangerous. I think our crew's solution was to actually get off of the boat, have one person climb the vines, and then cut the ship down so the whole ship slammed into the ground, setting off all the traps, and we could explore it much more easily. It's at this point that you give the players the actual treasure map that's in the box, and you can tear it in half so they have half of it and they need to find the other half at a different place on the game world. This sets you off on a bigger adventure. You will probably want to head up to Scrub Island because you've seen a boat over there because you need a boat. Your initial boat has fled and betrayed you. You're going to deal with some pirates up there who are harvesting this psychochemical ash. And if you manage to acquire their boat, then you're going to head to the high seas, where it's going to introduce you to the idea of sailing and pirate combat. Do you just want to sail to the next island and see what's there? Do you want to sail around for a bit and maybe hijack a couple of ships and get some treasure? That's really going to be all up to you. A neat thing about the maps that come in the box set is that if you fold them in half, you can just get the top of the ship like that, and then you can move these half maps around the table to show how the different ships are relative to each other. This gives you this very dynamic moving battle map as the ships collide with each other and you jump from deck to deck and so forth. It's a really clever idea. The next main island is St. Martin, which has an actual city. So you get involved in city politics and intrigue and creeping from house to house because you're in a city that hates pirates. There is pirates strung up in gibbets all over town, and they're going to hang you up too if they find you. It's here that you can get more equipment, you can get more goods, you can get more information, trying to figure out where you need to go next, and just engage in some piratey downtime activities. But like most things in these Pirateborg adventures, there's a lot of dynamism built into it. So things can change dramatically in the town based on what happens. There is a volcano on a nearby island that's probably going to be the last place you go to. But depending on your actions there, it may erupt or not erupt. And if it does erupt, then things will change a whole lot in the town. A tsunami will probably destroy a lot of it. Zombies and undead will start rising from the ocean and swarming the town. So if you come back to it, there'll be a whole new situation there to deal with. Pelican Island is the final location where the volcano is. And there's a bit of a dungeon crawl underneath the volcano where you're trying to find the final boss. I really appreciate how there is both a detailed map right here, but if you don't want to draw a map this detailed for the players to move through, there's a streamlined point crawl over here as well. The layout for all of these adventures is extremely well done. It's very clear, and there's a lot of extra information in here that you don't normally see in RPG adventures. For example, these are the different exits for each of the rooms. And there's even these arrows showing up or down that tells you whether you're going uphill or downhill as you move to those places. Things that are dangerous tend to be in red and have a little skull next to it. It's just very quick to scan. And here's the final boss that you can deal with at the center of the volcano. It's designed to be very cinematic. So for example, you can't actually fully defeat this boss until the volcano is about to erupt, because there's a countdown system that's going on in the background where you're rolling dice starting with a D8, I think. And if you roll a 1, then it downgrades to like a D6 and then a D4 and then a D2. So you can see the volcano getting more and more dangerous as time goes by. And when it's about to erupt, that's when the bad guy is most vulnerable. If Vieira is quite dangerous, she can just evaporate parts of your body, turning them into red sand, possibly killing you instantly. But this is the kind of game where making a character is very quick. So if you die, you can just roll up a new character and, hey, look, a new companion has wandered in, and you just continue. It's definitely an adventure designed for cinematic action. Things are always happening. You're always reacting to stuff. The world is changing. Things are swinging back and forth. Volcanoes are exploding. If that's the kind of adventure that you want, this is probably a really good choice. And it seems like a really great way to start out a Pirateborg adventure. All right, lastly, we're going to check out Down Among the Dead, a new hardback, full-sized expansion for Pirateborg. It adds a bunch of new adventures and some new classes and other add-ons. Oh, and did I mention that throughout all of these books, all of the writing, illustration, and layout is done by Luke Stratton, just one person? Kind of boggles my mind. Some of the new classes that it gives you include the Antiquarian, if you want to be more of a researcher, traveling into dark places and uncovering forbidden secrets. You could also be a deep one if you want to add some Lovecraftian flavor to your campaign, or an unlocked soul, because this book includes what happens if you go to Davy Jones' locker. And then if you escape, then you're just a soul that's been freed. There's even some fun complications right here. Like if you're on dry land for too long, your flesh starts to peel away, or your skeleton is made out of coral and it itches from within. The book adds 36 new skills for the seasoned sea rover. So instead of taking a standard class ability whenever you level up, you can instead take one of these. These are kind of like generic feats that anyone can use. There's 20 new house rules here, suggestions of ways you can tweak the rules to make it fit better the way that your group wants it to work. This one over here is one I would probably use, no armor dice, where either it turns the rolling the dice for damage subtraction into just a flat amount of damage subtraction, or you change the dice into a flat armor class. So having tier 2 or minus D4 armor just means AC 16. There's a number of fun generators like making your own Jolly Roger, generating your own Dark Caribbean Island by doing a die drop table, drop some dice on a piece of paper, and then use these tables to generate what's going on there. You can generate your own coral reefs. You can generate your own coins. Lots of different things for just flavoring different aspects of your campaign. You probably wouldn't use these during the game. You would probably use these during prep. There's little one-page dungeons, and there's longer adventures, like Lost to the Locker, which you can activate if you get a total party kill and everyone is sent to Davy Jones' locker. Because now you find yourself kind of in this limbo between the living and the dead, and you need to find a way to get back to the real world. Now, in order to escape, you need to find 3 things by investigating this strange netherworld. You need to find a boat, you need to find an obol, which is a coin put into the mouths of the dead, and you need to find an actual exit. If you get all 3 of those things, you can sail back to the real Caribbean. Plenty of spooky people to encounter, some lost souls. You can meet Charon himself, mist guards, the reef ghoul, the Torgoroth, Dagonites. But the structure of the location itself is a bit abstract. It's definitely a situation where you have these major locations that are fleshed out, but how they are connected to each other and how far apart they are from each other can be randomized using this table. This is something that I would definitely prep ahead of time. I would find it maybe a bit too slow to do that during gameplay. It would be a little bit awkward because I'd have to keep pausing and doing stuff. I do wish that the game did come with like a standard setup just to save a little bit of prep work for the game master. But what I do enjoy about these locations is that they often present an interesting problem for the players to deal with. For example, when they first appear here, they find themselves shackled to this rock that's floating upwards from the bottom of the ocean, and they're slowly drowning. So they have 5 minutes of real time to find a way to escape. There is a little bit of a printing issue where in some of the pages, the white text is kind of bleeding into the black text, but it doesn't make it unreadable. I think it's just an issue with the printer. One really great thing is that whenever one of those 3 things that you need, a vessel, an exit, or an obol, are present in a location, they're very clearly highlighted. This is super helpful for the game master, so you're not reading through all the text trying to find out where those things are. You immediately know when the players are close to one of them. There's plenty of fun activities to do, like there's this fort that's being bombarded by these ghost ships sailing around it. And of course, you could try and steal one of those ghost ships, but you're going to get involved in this battle. Or maybe you want to try and board one of these ships and sail it towards another one and destroy it. Are you going to try and save the fort or let it be destroyed? There's just a lot of different things that you can happen here, including shooting someone from a cannon onto a ghost ship, which is definitely inspired by Sea of Thieves, which is a really fun video game. You could visit the Limb Yard, or the desiccated sea full of these giant skeletons, or the inverted galleon. Here's another vessel you could pilot out of here, but how are you going to get it? It's attached by these gigantic chains where the links are the size of a human torso. If you do manage to cut them, then the ship will flip back over and you can sail it. But it doesn't tell you how you're going to do that. That's completely up to you. The next adventure is a more standard dungeon crawl, Venom in the Veins. We're investigating this lost temple that has a snake and poison theme to it. Here's the big guy prowling around. I like how it describes his personality as different characters from movies. So during the first time you find him, he's calm, quiet, but eerie and ethereal, like the library ghost in Ghostbusters. But when he's angry, he's like Mola Ram in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And if he's calm, then he's more like Nicodemus from The Secret of Nim or Thulsa Doom from Conan the Barbarian. Another theme in this dungeon is forbidden knowledge. So you can find bits of forbidden knowledge scattered around, and they're always highlighted in the actual text like that. Studying forbidden knowledge too long can have some bad effects, and he doesn't like it when you do that. So if you keep doing it, he'll show up more and more and get madder and madder. This dungeon also has some great locations and some great traps. For example, there's a trap situation over here where you have these giant jade pillars that are taking up space in the hallway, and they're linked together. So if this one is down, then this one is up. If you step on the pressure plate right here, then this one goes up and that one slams down on top of you. So once you figure out how this works, you can manipulate these pressure plates to move these blockages up and down so that you can make progress through it. Basically, whenever there is a trap or something dangerous, it's telegraphed ahead of time, which I really like. So a smart group can see it coming and work their way around it, rather than relying on just rolling well to detect traps. The last adventure, and probably the biggest one, is Into the Maelstrom, and this really feels like a homage to Curse of Strahd, or to Ravenloft in general. You're trying to hunt down a vampire pirate. He's traveling around on this enormous undead pirate ship. He's capturing people from all over the place. He's draining them of blood. He's trying to perform this ceremony to bring his wife back from the dead. The adventure can be tailored to run at different lengths, and there's even a tournament mode and scoring system here at the end, which is really fun. The more you accomplish, the more points you get. There's a summary of the main villains here. Albrecht the Tideborn is the chief vampire. But really the interesting part of this is that it starts out in a very similar way to Ravenloft, where you are going to be randomly generating a lot of the essential elements of it from a deck of cards. A strange old man is doing a card reading for you, and based on the cards that he flips over, is going to establish all sorts of things. Like it could establish who the party's patron is, or where you might find an artifact that's a very powerful weapon that you can use. This just creates a lot of variety because every time you run this adventure, the basic setup is going to be different. Here's the environment, the dead islands. The Maelstrom is going to be sailing around, and you're probably going to be chasing after it or investigating all these locations, looking for clues and resources. If you get onto the Maelstrom, there is a ticking time bomb. The vampire is draining the crew, getting more and more blood, and the time of the ritual is drawing closer and closer. The deck of cards can still be used as a random generator to generate prisoners, items, treasures, and encounters that you have on the ship. And there's plenty of people and places to explore as you crawl through the whole thing, probably trying to avoid notice and free as many prisoners as you can. And the final pages are a rundown of all the locations on the archipelago, like this town that you might be exploring before you actually get to the ship. Although if you're running a one-shot, you probably want to throw them onto the ship as quickly as possible, because that's where the real core of the adventure is, I think. So there is my look through all of the Pirateborg material. Pirateborg has quickly become probably my favorite of all of the Borgs. I love how easy it is to use, I love how it doesn't take itself too seriously, and I love how focused it is on very action-packed and interactive adventures. Luke is very deliberate in setting up situations where smart parties will be more successful, but also where just going crazy is going to have a lot of fun domino effects where things are going to get more dangerous and more chaotic. I think that's exactly what you want in a game of this type, and Luke pulls it off really well. As usual, I will put a link in the description below for where you can pick up a copy of all of these new books. And if you want to get in the running for winning a copy of all of them, then make sure you are subscribed to the Questing Beast newsletter. Again, link is down below. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time.